My second theory, running along the Wangnan was the rightful owner of that original ring, is that Karaka is not the rightful owner of his ring. And so him saying my brother is not his literal brother, but brother means my competition, my rival.
AOA, that's a triple play. New episodes, I couldn't wait. Yeah, open your mind at the first gate. Press play, no need to debate. AOA, check me out. Look, clocked in, you can catch the hype. Golden Dawn, how we follow the light. Anime like life, married to it, my wife.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages? Welcome back to the AOA Show. I'm your host, as always, Ian, along with my boys Isaiah.
Yo, yo, yo.
And Gavin.
What is twiddly dinkin' your winkin' Gucci flinkin'?
Anyway, today we are talking about Tower of God, of course, Season 2 of the Webtoon. Hit me up with the chapters one more time, Isaiah.
That would be chapters 214 or 215 to 225.
Thank you very much, sir. So we will be going over these in a deep dive analysis today. We already had our live stream. It was our best one yet. At the time of recording this right now, absolutely A1 stream, fantastic. We broke records in terms of how many people we had in. I think at one point peaking at 375, where our previous peak was like 315. So that's huge numbers, huge improvement. Made some new friends along the way. So if you guys haven't seen that already, you definitely want to see that.
A lot of stupid, crazy reactions.
A lot of stupid, emphasis on stupid, crazy reactions by yours truly here. Definitely check that out. And if you haven't seen it already, we posted our blog post discussion compiled by our beautiful mods in our Discord. So if you want to catch our thoughts on some of the blog posts that SIU so graciously wrote for us to enjoy, you can catch that as well on our YouTube channel. But today we are going to be talking about these. Compiled by the beautiful folks in our Discord. A lot of beautiful people around here who asked some questions in terms of what they wanted us to talk about, what predictions they wanted us to make, etc. From the chapters that we had read in our live stream. So we compiled a list of the 7 most upvoted questions, and we will be answering those today, giving some predictions, thoughts, etc. So if you guys like the content today, you want to see more, make sure you guys are liking, subscribing, hitting that notification bell, sharing with your friends, and commenting your thoughts down below. What did you think of this discussion? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Etc. What do you think about these chapters that we went over? What are your thoughts on Tower of God as a whole? But anyway, hopping into this discussion. Gavin, how looking? Are we ready?
Oh, we are looking ready. You want me to start it off?
Yeah, let it rock.
Start it off. So our first question is from Ann, or On. I actually think this is correct. Ann, On. Okay. 2005. So now, as you know, Yuri planned all this, sending Bam to NHS.
Name Hunt Station.
Yeah, but it gets cut off.
No, you're good. Name Hunt Station.
Yeah, but no,
look,
what I'm saying is 1 and 2. Is there no 3? Is this all one question?
Yeah, that's.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Sending Bam to NHS and telling him bring Kaiser's name. All this to prevent Bam from going to the floor of death, as she thought he would lose and up for auction, and that's why she sent a high ranker to buy him and his friends. Do you think it was right to manipulate Bam like this? She practically lied. Gavin and Isaiah, please don't be biased. LOL. Not going to front. Do you guys have an answer? I might have to read that again. I'm being completely honest here.
Yeah, about the way
on
you were reading that, I was like, he's not understanding a word he's reading.
No.
I'll take a stab at it here. So as going through it, first of all, Anne, thank you so much for the question. And I think this is the second weekend. Well, a lot of you are reoccurring faces on here, which is great. You guys ask very thought-provoking questions. So thank you for that. But so it says, now that you know Yuri planned all this, sending Bam to Name Hunt Station, bring back Kaiser's name, etc. She basically staged the whole thing. Do you think this was morally acceptable, right? Because Bam goes there with the assumption that he says, yeah, Yuri told me to get the name. She's fully confident in the fact that I will be able to do so. And when I give it to her, we're going to be able to go to the floor of death. I'm going to meet Rachel again. I'm going to learn a little bit more about myself. But now we realize that actually Yuri was lying to Bam, and Yuri did not want Bam to go to the floor of death, which is very relevant because a huge point of discussion that we had last week, and really it's been, I feel like, over the past 2 weeks, is this whole dilemma between Bam and Endorsi's teams and their reasonings for wanting Kaiser's name, and if their reasonings were more justified, if they weren't, if someone was being selfish, if somebody wasn't, etc. And we had people pretty split down the aisle on this. And I will say that one of the main points, and I believe it was you that made it, Gavin, was that, you know, Dorsey has to be careful because you really can't trust the Lopopia-Ren family, which I agree with, right? It's like there's so much up in the air with that, you know, you don't know if they're going to let you off the hook anyway, right? But I think it's interesting now that we have this reverse side to it, because putting that in the reverse with Bomb's perspective is something that wasn't even on the table. We didn't even say, well, what if Yuri's lying, right? Didn't even think of it because it wasn't something we're like, no, Lopopia-Ren family, you can't trust them. But Yuri, like, we all know Bam's reasonings. Like, if he gets it, it's fine. There's not going to be any contention there. So I find it very interesting, actually, that Yuri lied to him, because then you know, that goes to show that it's like Bomb didn't even really know either, right? He got lucky in the sense, or, you know, however you want to call it, that he actually defeated Kaiser, because Yuri was not expecting him to. That wasn't part of her plan at all, at least the way that, you know, I think it brings up an interesting point, at least what I'm getting from the question here. So to answer it, do I think it was right to manipulate Bomb like this? No, I don't personally. I mean, you know, I guess she's doing this for his protection. She maybe thinks the floor of death is maybe too much for him. She doesn't want him to see Rachel again. Maybe there's questions that we don't want answered at the moment. She definitely likes Bomb, more than just likes too. So she definitely doesn't want him being put in harm's way. So I'm really not sure what her reasonings are. And I think I need a little more clarification before I gave a solidified answer on this, which unfortunately by that time, you know, this question might fall out of relevancy. But, I would like to know what her reasonings, if we get them out, are for lying. I don't think it really makes it right. I think that she should tell him straight up what the deal is, unless she's hiding something from him, which at that rate, that opens up a whole other can of worms. But, you know, short answer, I don't think that was great that she lied to him. I think you know, everything that went down, there was a lot more at stake there. And, you know, I think making Bomb, I think it's this thing. Okay, to wrap it up, I have my head on it now. I think it's this issue of trust that a lot of people, not a lot, but some people have with Bomb and his character, not just viewers, but like literal characters in the show, right? Rachel doesn't trust that Bomb is going to be capable enough to fulfill said goals. She doesn't fully believe in his power, right? She's even quoted at one point being surprised that Bomb was able to even lift a finger against Kaiser, and that she thought she chose the right sword to help her ascend the tower, etc. We get sometimes with, you know, way back with Kuhn, although he's gotten a little bit better, hiding the fact at first that he wanted to kill Rachel and wanted to make this coup because he didn't know how Bomb would react. And now there are a couple others, but now we have Yuri in a similar position. And I think, you know, a lot of it comes down, unfortunately, is that a lot of these folks, they love Bomb. They really do, and they cherish him. Some maybe, some don't, Rachel. But they want to do what's best for him, etc. But I think Bomb, at the end of the day, has to have a say in it. And I think he deserves the full picture in what's going on before he goes into it, so that he can help, you know, he can devise a plan or something in order to get him through said hurdle, at least is my opinion. And I think while these people's intentions might be good, I think at the end of the day, they can be doing sometimes a bit of a disservice to him, because I feel that it translates as to them not thinking that Bomb is ready to take on whatever task that might be, or that it will hurt him, but not asking Bomb how he feels about it. So that's my personal opinions on it. I don't know if you guys
I actually have something, because I kind of want to answer, and I guess my thought, I agree with pretty much all your points. I think one tidbit I like to add is Yuri hasn't been along for the Bam's journey as we have been. You know, she hasn't seen the full extent of Jewel Vial Grace. Like, yes, we've seen him fight White, but to be honest, she really doesn't know where he stands in terms of power other than basing it off that fight. So in her eyes, you know, she thinks Bam is almost as if we're like the same level that she left him, because even when she did interact with him, all that was on Bam's mind was Rachel. So now that she meets Bam again, you know, in the present, she's like, wow, okay, Bam is still in the same mindset. It doesn't really look like he's grown, and I haven't seen what level of power that he's actually built up to. Of course, we know, and we're like, yeah, Bam can beat Booty, but, you know, Yuri, she's been out of the loop this whole time. She thought he was dead. So I feel like, of course, she would want to protect him in a sense, because she doesn't know as much as we do the extent of Bam's true power that he has. So I can see some sort of justification in terms of why she did it. However, I don't agree with it at the end of it, because, again, it's a whole trust issue thing where it's like, if you sit, obviously sitting down and communicating isn't as easy, especially with Bam and his emotions toward Rachel. So I could say, to answer the question, I don't think it was right for her to manipulate it. However, I can see why she would, from the standpoint that she did. if it was from the mindset of not knowing Bam's power where he is in Jewel Viol Grace. If she did have full understanding of his abilities and, you know, how he interacts, then maybe it would be more off kilter. But what I think is more irresponsible with that decision is actually if she was not trusting of Bam's abilities, sending him then to Kaiser to fight. I feel like that is a more dangerous choice to make, because you're assuming that, you know, Bam doesn't die in some accident and, you know, Kaiser just steals his name. And then you're also hoping that she then puts them up for auction. So it's like you're kind of hoping that a lot of things line up in your place when obviously it didn't at the end of it because Bam beat Kaiser. But I feel like it was weird, just the decision that she made. I'm like, a lot of things could have really went wrong, and it's not like she was there to save him if things did go wrong. So I could see it being irresponsible. I don't think it was necessarily the right decision. However, you know, one thing led to another. It is what it is. But I can see some from different perspectives, you know, I guess fights, or not fights, but like opinions that could be led on it.
Yeah.
So that would be my answer.
Couple things I want to let Isaiah go. A couple things that maybe I want to unpack from what you were saying, but you might wind up answering those things within your thoughts on it. So I'm curious.
Okay. So I think it's weird to compare what Yuri did with Bomb to like what the Lopo Boss sisters did with Endorsi, because I think like what the Lopo Boss sisters did is like 100% unequivocally a lie, right? Like they told her they were going to help her, and like that was not their intent. So I think it's weird to compare something like that to something like what Yuri did, where while I do feel like it's manipulation at the end of the day, and I do feel like that by itself is wrong, like you shouldn't be manipulating anybody, and it does lean into the whole trust thing that both you guys brought up. I don't really see it as like a lie, because when she first talks to Bam about it, she's like, oh, you think you can go to the floor of death? Well, you're wrong. This place is not like, you know, some place for kids. You absolutely shouldn't be going here. And he's like, but I have to go. I have no choice. And she's like, okay, then you have to pass this test then. If you can bring me back Kaiser's name, then I will believe that you have what it takes and that you're strong enough to survive on the floor of death. So that inherently, to me, does leave an option open in Bomb's mind that he could fail, that he might not be ready to take on Kaiser and by extension the floor of death, which is different than being like, all right, Bomb, go get Kaiser's name. Kaiser is this woman who you are perfectly capable of beating, and there really shouldn't be any problems, because then that's a lie. If you're telling Bomb that there's no way he should lose to this person and there's a threat he could lose, like that's a lie. You're saying something that's not the truth. But the way she presents it is as a literal test. She's like, if you can beat Kaiser, then I will believe you're strong enough to go to the floor of test. Now, again, in Yuri's head, I think there's obviously a manipulation aspect, because she doesn't expect Bomb to be winning. Correct. And I think that, again, that's the manipulative part, and that's the part that's wrong, because that seems to be a running theme here, where like a lot of people seem to not really trust that Bomb can do, you know, whatever it is he wants to do when, you know, sort of their backs are against the wall. But I don't know. I feel like lying is like a stretch. I feel like that's like, it's painting this, you know, it's like, oh, Yuri was trying to fuck over Bomb. And it's like, well, I don't think so. Because if you think about it, like, even when Endorsi, at the whole tail end of this, when Endorsi learns that the floor of death is where they're going, she's like, oh yeah, no, you absolutely can't go there. Like, what are you, fucking crazy? And so like this place, whatever it is not like a place where like, oh, I think I could, like, you have to be sure that you're the kind of nigga that can fuck around on the floor of death. And so like, I think by extension, that's what this test is to prove, right? If Bomb can get Kaiser's name and not lose to Kaiser, then he might have a shot at getting to the floor of death. So I think in my mind, it's more of like, she was testing him. And again, that's not saying that like she didn't think, whether she thought he was going to actually beat her or not is like kind of a separate thing, right? But I don't think that like she was trying to, you know, to mess with him, or she was trying to fuck it. Because I do think if he can't beat Kaiser, like there's no way in hell he should be going to the floor of death, because whatever Kaiser's got going on, the floor of death, from the sounds of it, is 100 times worse.
Yeah, so I wanted to respond to a couple things there. So number one, the Lopo Biaren family does not state that they're going to help Endorsi. They say that they are going to stop trying to kill her. So I guess if you translate that as help, fair enough, but I translate help and not trying to kill you as definitely two different things. So I think when you were saying, oh, the comparison doesn't seem warranted because it's a totally different scenario, the Lopo Biaren family, I think the scenario was not the gravity of what they could or couldn't do. Am I going to kill you? Am I not? Do I detest you? Do I love you? I don't think it's that. I think it's the fact that that Lopo the thing in contention was, could the Lopo be a Ren family lie and not fulfill on their word? Yeah, 50-50. We don't know. But something we never brought up was the fact that could Yuri lie? Yes or no, right? That wasn't even a question. So I don't think for me it's a matter of what's the extent at which the Lopo be a family lies or not, and do they just straight up kill Dorsey? Do they do whatever? Because number one, they for all intents and purposes, from what we've seen so far, and again, where we are now, this could change within a panel. I don't know, but as we know right now, they have pissed off for the moment. And secondly, they didn't like Yuri does lie, right? So I think that's for me to, answer your first point. I think that's more the question, not the extent they would go to, just the fact, could they lie is the thing, which yes, they could lie. But yes, so could Yuri. So I think that was, I didn't want to compare that as like the Lopo Biaren family is like, because you use the analogy a lot of like lying in terms of I want to fuck you over. And to me, at least, I don't see it as that. I don't think Yuri is trying to like screw Bam over where the Lopo Biaren family would be trying to screw Dorsey over. So it definitely makes it a little more hotly contested. But I think that it's a lie nonetheless. And I think that like a white lie or a lie, it's still a lie. So I don't for me, I don't think there's really like a scale to where it's like, if the question is, did she lie? My opinion goes to yes, she did, right? Whatever her intentions were, if they were good, it's because of out of love or whatever. She did lie at the end of the day. And I don't think, because again, it's hard because I don't have the panels in front of me right now. So I would like to get the exact verbiage in terms of what she said to him specifically when she's telling him to go do that. But if I'm not mistaken, the way she interprets it is that, go complete this test that I know you're going to be able to complete, when she says it. Like, she's like, I have full, go ahead, go get it. Like, you got this, slugger. You know what I mean? Like, kind of, get out there, go kick some butt. Which is clearly not what she had, what she had thought at all. So I guess, sure, it wasn't a lie on that grand scale, but I think there were deceptive qualities in the sense that if she really thought from the rip that Bum would have absolutely no chance, that telling him that, and it could be more in a way with tact, but that, hey, dude, this is like I genuinely don't think you have a chance here. And I don't want you going to the floor of death regardless. Like, sure, if you can do this, that's fine. But I don't know. I think there's a line to be had there. And I don't think that she's evil, but
I'm
I think
pretty sure that she doesn't say it like that. I am pretty positive that she states it to him as a test, because she's like, oh, if you believe that you're somebody that can survive on the floor of death, I need you to prove that to me. I need you to go and get Kaiser's name. This is not an easy task.
Which she does. Which, like I said, she does. But I'm saying the way in which she says this is a test, this is not an easy task, she does tell him that it's like, but go out there. You're going to get that name.
I'm pretty sure she doesn't.
Okay. If we can get clarification on that.
Yeah, that's fair. But I'm saying, I guess at that point we're arguing two different things, because I feel I don't think that's what she said. I think the way she phrased it was more or less like down the middle of this is a test and you'll have to prove yourself.
Well, I guess at the end of the day, here's the thing, right? We don't have to argue about two separate things when you break it down. Regardless of the way she said it or she didn't, I guess my problem lies with the fact that Yuri knew more information and purposely withheld it. I think that's what the issue is here. And I think if you want to grade that on a scale of lies or what her intentions were or whatever the case is, that's fine. And I don't think she's an evil person. But I do think, to answer the question, nonetheless, you had information, you withheld it. I think there's something to be said sometimes about, well, I didn't lie outright. I didn't say something that was untruthful, but it's like, yeah, but you had the truth and didn't say it. And I think that in and of itself could be considered a lie, to answer the question. So that's my opinion on it, regardless of how it was purveyed. But anyway, Gavin, I know you had thoughts, but we'll get to it another time in terms of what I was going to say to rebuttal that. So I don't want to take all day in this question. Anyway, number 2 by Cynical Aguero. Thank you for the question. It says, on the whole, Bomb being referred to God by Ha Jin Sung, how does it contrast when Kuhn would rather help keep Bomb grounded, saying, quote, we're not gods, you know. What do you speculate will happen later, and how this conflict of interests will reach to a choice, since their climb will only get even more dangerous? Yeah. So basically, okay, Han Jin Sung, I just need to read it really fast.
I'm the same way.
My apologies. Sometimes need to go through. Yeah, I think this is actually a question that I looked at before we started recording, and I was like, ooh, that was a really good one. Because I think there is some sort of, if we wanted to go one way or the other, right? If SIU wants to go in a certain way, I think this could be a potential wedge, right? Because Baum continuously says, man, if I only had the ability to save everyone, and Kuhn kind of gives him a slice of humble pie once in a while, and he's like, yo, take it easy. Like we are human at the end of the day, where a lot of these folks in FUG are pumping Baum up to be like, no, like you can achieve that. Right. And I think this has to do, with Baum's, need to try and save everyone. It's like, okay, well, how much do I dabble with FUG if they have the ability to maybe make me that god that I want to be so bad, whereas maybe Kuhn isn't able to do that. Now, I don't think they go down that route, but I could see it as potentially driving a wedge at some point down the road where, Hajin, Sung, and gang is like, no, like you literally have the ability to do it and we're encouraging it. If Baum takes that seriously or not. If he's like, okay, and how far is it before your encouragement turns to just blatant lies, right? Where it's like you're pushing him too far, where it's like, no, guys, he can't do everything. Like, let's relax. You're pumping up his ego a little too much. But on the flip side, like, if you're grounding him a little too much, right, does it like stymie his actual potential? I don't know. I think it's an interesting question. I don't think it'll be a crazy thing, but it is interesting to see the contrast between the two. Looks like you have thoughts, Gavin.
I do, because I'm actually kind of the opposite. I do think it's going to be a big problem for Bam, because the way I see him as a character is he's almost very fragile emotionally, and especially when Rachel's in the mix. And I feel like it's going to come to the point where we've seen it a little bit, where he's attaining power and he reaches a problem where his friends are in this hard spot, and ultimately it's up to him to overcome that and fix these solutions. And with that, not that I'm saying he's getting a big head or anything, but he is actually physically feeling himself growing stronger and feeling that power and using that power. So with that, I'm almost like, I can't help but think of like Death Note with like Light, where it's like he starts off, culminating this, and it starts small, and as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, it's like he feels like he's putting the pressure of the world on his own back, where he's like, nobody else has this power but me, so I need to protect everybody. And it almost comes to a case where it literally just starts mentally affecting him in a negative way, where now you have an entourage of people calling you a god, and you're already you have your own goals on the sideline that you're trying to fulfill, and it's like you're almost being fed these lines where it's like, we're following you, you have all this power, we know you have this power. And he's like, yeah, I kind of do. I beat this person who was unbeatable for 1,000 years. I beat another person who was like almost indestructible. It's like, maybe I am a god, and maybe I do need to really become this person who makes all these changes. And I feel like that's going to be what fragments him in the future, and kind of how I predict, I guess, the route that SIU like turns down, because I feel like Bam can't be this person who's always perfectly in the middle of like a normal person and a god. I feel like there needs to be an inner conflict in his mind that occurs that allows a route to be changed emotionally, and it makes for a good story when you have a character that's like that. So I almost feel it's natural for it to go down this route, and again, getting more power as you move on in the future is like an entrance in like almost that godlike mentality, until you have, maybe him split away from Kuhn because Bam gets too big for his britches, splits from Kuhn, is doing his solo thing, and is getting so lost, he loses his personal self and his own identity, until there becomes a time where Kuhn's team grinds, reunites him, and then is grounded again. Like, I almost see the story going in that route. And I mean, it's kind of been inferred by some people, like Kuhn saying, if he gets this control if Bam gets this power that we can't control, or I can't control, he's going to be a loose cannon, and he's going to do his own thing, and he can climb the tower much faster, and is supposed to, than everyone else. So I almost feel like it's inevitable for Bam to split away from them and do his own thing, and then it's going to really be up to Kuhn and gang to like kind of reach back up from the heavens, grab him and pull him down and smack him back into reality, and be like, Bam, like, this isn't you, you lost yourself, this is who you are, you need to remember it. And like, through that whole self-growth and progression is where we get the true Bam at the end of the story. But I guess that's where I predict and see it in my canon, but I don't know, I could be completely wrong. But yeah, I guess that's my thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. Isaiah, you got anything?
So I think it's what's interesting about the contrast here is that like it makes sense, because like one side is not inherently wrong. I mean, like, it's not. So Bam, part of Bam's struggle with this whole like, am I a god? And if I'm a god, like, does that mean I should be thinking godlike, and that I should be very subjective, and I shouldn't let like emotions or people I like or whatever tie into my answers about helping people? Then we have a situation where it's like, again, with the name hunt thing, and like, if he were to just give Dorsey his name, or if he were to let her, fight Kaiser and take her name or whatever, like, that was sort of the side, right, where it's like, oh, if somebody comes to me for help, like, as this godlike being, like, I have a duty to help them, regardless of what their disposition is, regardless of what their, what the circumstance is, and regardless of how I feel about them or it, where it's like, that's where the conversation first sort of comes into the limelight, and Kuhn is like, well, no, you are not a god. Like, you have these powers, but you are not, like, the thing that makes you human, or the thing that makes you you, is that you're human. And being human means having those emotions. It means thinking about and taking those things into play when it comes to making decisions. Like, you could just go and give Dorsey your name, or let her get Kaiser's name or whatever, but you can't, because you need Kaiser's name. You have your own set of objectives here, and there's a reason why you need to do this thing, and so you can't, the way he words it is thoughtlessly or recklessly give your help to anybody who will ask. And so I think what's interesting about the contrast is it like sort of you were saying, it's not something that's just going to go away. And I do think it's going to be, because even at the end of the set of chapters we read here, again, Bam brings it up to Kuhn, and he's like, I forget what the exact lines are, but he says something along the lines of like, oh, is this what it means to be human, or is this what it feels like? This is like, and Kuhn's like, yeah. And Bam has this one line where he's like, man, but like, wouldn't it be great though if we actually like were gods, if we had the ability? Because I think the plus side, the upside that Bam sees in the godlike, mindset, is the fact that he could change things. He could literally change the way the tower works. He could completely uproot the structure that it has and, change it for the better. And he could help all the kinds of people that he's seen over the years coming to him and being like, you've got, like, this is what Jahad did to us, or this is what the tower did to it. Like, whoever has like destroyed our lives. Like, as a god figure, he could make that better. He could change that. But in doing that, does he lose all of or enough of the humanity in him that makes him bomb? And at that point, you know what I mean? So I do think it's an interesting contrast, because clearly the members of FUG, Jin Sung and the like, don't care or don't seem to care about that. Their objective is very much like, no, don't worry. You are the god, and you will kill Jahad, and like, that's what's going to happen. But Kuhn's like, no, man, you got to take a step back and remember that you're a person, because if you lose your humanity chasing, this god status or FUG or Jahad, who's to say you don't become another Jahad? So I definitely think it's an interesting duality there.
Sure. You want to read the next question?
Sure. So the next question comes from the Dark North Emperor. It is the revelation that Kuhn, Maria, and Macheni are in cahoots with the princesses from the Lopobia family. How deep do you think their scheme goes? They were even planning to take out Dorsey and, by effect, Anak. And if they know Dorsey's known associates, they're bound to know that Kuhn, Aguero Agnes, Kuhn, and Kuhn Ran are her acquaintances as well. Does this support the idea that Maria completely used our boy Kuhn AA, or is something larger at play? Where their goals were aligned?
You got any thoughts?
So it first off, definitely hit me as a shocker to see, because I that's one of the key things that I remembered, because it was Kuhn's motivation for why he was there, why he decided to climb the tower, right? He helped Maria to get to the throne, and in exchange was betrayed and then subsequently cast out of the Kuhn family. So he, at least to me, he dropped that line, and I was like, well, that's gotta come into play back at some point, and that was all the way back in season 1. So, but I didn't know when this was going to come into play, how much of a big deal it was going to be. And like, when you hear it come out of the mouths of the Lopobia sisters, who are, for all intents and purposes, despicable people, you're like, oh, fuck. So not only is she now like a bigger player in this game in terms of the princesses and where her status is, but she doesn't seem to be on the right side, or at least the same side that Kuhn is on, which is interesting, because again, if we are to, from the way Kuhn tells the story, or the way the story is set, Kuhn is the reason that Maria is there, right? And now that's different from Macheni, who's a different person. But I definitely think Kuhn was used. I don't know, like, to what extent. I don't know if this was like solely a Maria thing. I don't know if this was, because I could even see a train of logic, I guess, of like Maria and Kuhn worked together to get Maria to the throne, and maybe Maria's intentions upon getting on the throne were like pure and just, but like X amount of time on the throne has like since corrupted her and sort of like, drastically altered her viewpoints, or she just, was messing with him from the start and just using him to get to the throne. I could see both sides. What's interesting to me is the fact that, again, like the question states, with Maria and Kuhn Macheni knowing in Dorsey and her associates, like by juxtaposition, it tells us that Maria Macheni and the Lopobai sisters, although we know they don't have a problem with it, know at some point they're probably gonna have to go against Kuhn Ran and Kuhn Aguero Agnes. So that's what like puts my mind more into like, oh, they must have been used, because it's like, well, if you knew that like you were going against this guy who you literally have everything to be thankful for getting you in this position in the first place, it must mean that like you were using him from the start, right? But then I'm like, well, again, there is something to be said for like maybe again her purpose for getting up there or wanting to be there was just, but she was sort of corrupted upon being there, and now she's in a different state of mind. She's a different person basically, where she's like, no, I don't care who I have to fight to keep my place here, even if it's the person who got me here.
Gavin, you have any thoughts?
Honestly, I echo pretty much everything Isaiah said. All those conflicts are honestly what was rattling through my brain as he was doing it. I guess one other point I want to add that's not really a factual one, but I mean it's similar to things that he said. But as we've noticed, pretty much all the families that we've come across, they're all messed up in their own right. Like we have yet to meet one legitimate family who is cool and chill, and none of them are going to be like that. Let's be realistic. And they all have this problem of being power hungry and scheming to get said power, and they don't care to stomp over each other to thus get that power. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's been the long con all this time and putting Kuhn under and now trying to get I feel like it almost doesn't matter in a sense because it's almost just how this tower is built with its families in some way, shape, or form, pure or not. It's just how you're going to end up when you stay in that like structure, and until you break away, like Kuhn has done and Rand has done and other people, like that's the only time you're going to get a taste of the real life and how the real world works and how that's not you're supposed to live or how you are not supposed to live your life and everything like that. So it just sucks how this is what the family structure is built like, and just based off of context clues of other families, I feel like it's just the case that he got long con from the game, and it's really just it's a shame, and I feel like the scheme goes all the way back. I mean, if not, it doesn't really matter because we're still at this point now where she's hunting them down, so it's like there's still a disconnect. So to say.
What I think is interesting or the most interesting is the fact that like we still don't have enough of the cards, at least in my mind, to be like, I mean, obviously to actually know, but to make an accurate enough assumption, because we still don't even really know what the story was with Kuhn and Maria, how that whole thing happened. A lot of that story is subject to rumors and speculation through the family and the tower of what happened. We don't really know what their positions were. We don't know what the standoff was. We don't know what the points of contention were. So I think until we even hear the Kuhn's version, and then again, Kuhn's version is just that one side of the story. We don't have Maria's perspective, but I think those perspectives are what's going to like really sort of, ultimately enlighten us, because we don't really even know. Like I almost feel like I don't even know how to judge Maria because I don't know enough about the character, and especially, I mean, Macheni, I think at least I've sculpted a little bit more of a clearer picture, because even from the little bit of interaction we get between her and Yuri at the beginning of season 2, she seems to be a little bit more like traditional princess of Jahad. I don't take no shit. If you're not up here rolling off with the big numbers here, like you're dirt. But I think hope there's a little bit more complexity, I guess, to Maria than that. Like maybe there's a little bit more whatever. But I guess I'm still very sus on her. I'm interested to like get the actual definition of what happened in that story and how it actually played out.
I'm going, for me, my basis is on everybody saying it's the Tower of Deceit, and you can't I feel like you had to obviously you mess with people to get to that point, but if you mess with my boy Coon, it is really the Tower of Deceit, and I will beat you. So that is literally all my basis that it shows off of. It's just people saying how much of a deceitful tower this is, and I'm like, if you mess with my boy Coon from day one, like you can't get any more deceitful than that, other than Rachel. Begrudgingly.
Well, actually, the next question, Gavin, if you want to read it, you're more than welcome.
So we got question number 4 by Pipe Dream. Yuri mentioned that Quadero, a high ranker, I just butchered that name, I'm sorry, the owner of Kranos, traveled with the 10 family leaders. What would you take from this comment? Did you know there could be high rankers powerful enough to travel with the family leaders until now? And how does this change your perspective on high rankers in general, especially after the fight between Yuri and Karaka? Happy birthday, Coon. Oh, pipe dream, of course. So let me try to break that down. I'm going to reread it a second time, unless anybody has anything that jumps out off the bat.
Go for it.
So the owner of Kranos traveled with the 10 family leaders. So is this... I think this is the first time we've ever heard of somebody traveling with the original 10.
It's the first time we've heard of a high ranker.
Or a high ranker, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. So obviously, I guess...
Was there anyone else besides the 10 great families heads and Jahad, though?
Well, there was, but we didn't know that up until now.
So this is the first
that's what I
guy,
was getting
right?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's the
okay.
surprise is that there were other people that it wasn't just the 10 family or the heads and Jahad.
I mean, did you think there could be high
Yeah.
rankers powerful enough to travel? I mean, I didn't think there was because I didn't find out till just now, to be honest with you. Until now, how does this change your perspective on high rankers in general, especially after the fight between Yuri and Karaka? Surface level, they are scary.
Because I hate to tell you, just in general, you know that the heads, because we're talking about the heads of the 10 great families, we know how OP they are. So I feel like even back then, they kind of had to know that they were hot crap, and for them to kind of be in their group and, going into the tower or whatever, to even allow this person next to him in traveling, like, I feel like they wouldn't allow just anybody to be of acquaintance with them. Like, you have to be some crazy, like, obscure, insane powerhouse to even be, like, within the same, like, arm distance with them, because just basing off of their personalities that they tend to have, they really are selfish and all they care about is power. And I feel like they're just not going to run around with some peasants, who aren't strong, and, like, they're going to be like, nah, get out of my presence, So, like, you need to have someone who's crazy powerful, and I feel like it's demonstrated just by the weapon that Yuri now has obtained, because that is a crazy, whatever you want to call it, a thorn, I guess actually it was called. And it was very, very, very powerful. So obviously we knew way back in the day, this man was packing heat, and he kind of had to travel with the 10 great families. And I guess what I'm curious with is if he isn't the only one, and if there was more high rankers, and if how many there were, obviously, and what had happened to them in the future, because obviously they didn't become heads of the 10 great families. So, at what basis were they allowed to travel with them? Were they kind of just like nixed off afterwards? Was the 10 great families like, yeah, we don't want to give these people too much power or notoriety, so we're kind of going to stifle them off on an island in East Jabib or wherever, and what decision-making process was that, and who ultimately made that decision? Was that King Jahad, because I'm guessing at that time he wasn't technically king. If he was in the town, what was that whole political conflict going on between them? So I guess that's what my addition on it.
Yeah, I don't know. My question really is, the 10 great families or the family heads, was this a thing that Jahad and folks established before coming into the tower? Or was it once they completed the tower and ascended to the top that they instilled themselves and named themselves the heads of the 10 great families, right? Like, I wonder... I guess I'm more curious to know the lore before the tower, or at least before these folks came to the tower, right? And now I wonder that we have the mention of Quadrado.
Yeah,
Quadrado. That I would like to assume that he wasn't the only one beyond the 10 great families in Jahad. I'm starting to think now, and again, could be totally wrong, that they kind of came with like an entourage, that it was like it wasn't like they always refer to the 10 great family heads because it was like they were the guys that were like you refer to most bands, you refer to the singer, most armies, you refer to the general, most, what I mean? Like these were the people that were like at the upper levels of whatever class system they came beforehand and had the most power. So like a lot of these guys kind of are more of like in the history books, but aren't spoken about frequently. Not to mention that the 10 great family heads are still alive. Whereas at least as far as we know, like because they've never
this
died.
one.
At least, yeah. Whereas this guy, you know what I mean? Like, and I'm assuming many others maybe died coming up the tower with them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if everyone lived besides like
Did they
the OGs.
insinuate his death or give anything? Because I feel like something was mentioned about his death in particular, and that's why I didn't really want to say anything because I kind of felt stupid if I forgot. But I feel like
he
was
lost
something.
He lost the weapon to someone. I can't
Yeah,
remember.
they don't specifically state.
Oh, in a fight with Yurek.
Yeah, that he's alive or dead. Just that his weapon, when he got in a fight with Yurek, that's
what
how
it
Yuri
was.
obtained it because
Yes.
she found it after he lost
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Okay.
So very powerful. But again, it's like if you have this hierarchy here and you have Jahad, you have the 10 great families, etc. Like these guys are probably up there, you know, and if they came with them initially, it's just that they weren't in the top 10, you know what I mean? They might have made top 16, but unfortunately that's not good enough to give you the title. So I think these guys, you know, and it's funny because it's like, it's like almost weird to me to refer to them as like a high ranker because, you know, they obviously weren't referred to as a high ranker before they completed the tower, because completing the tower is what makes you a ranker, right? That's what they established in the beginning. Like when they came into the tower through the front door, it's not like, oh, Jahad's like, I'm going to bring my 10 great families and some high rankers, right? It was like, no, I'm going to bring my squad. Like these are the people. So I wonder, again, I'm just curious to know all this, like, did these people show outstanding feats within battle? You know what I mean? And ascended and obtained the name of like a 10 great families, right? Like some of these people had, or were these people already established as figures of power before coming into the tower and commanded whatever? I don't know. I know I didn't really answer the question there. I apologize because it kind of opened a can of worms of other questions for me personally. But getting back to the question, what would you take from the comment? Did you think, well, yeah, the weapon as well, I was going to say was really awesome. The fact that he inscribed his journey on it. And I think it was cool how it paralleled some of the shots that we got in the beginning of the manhwa and the anime with like the mountain and the star and all that kind of thing. It was really cool. I thought there was a very interesting weapon as well. And he kind of, I guess, was like their cameraman, their journalist, their documenter as they went up the tower. So I think that was really cool. And yeah, I think I kind of answered in terms of my question of powerful. Like, I don't really consider it's like, oh, it's a high ranker. Like he could have been really close. He just didn't. I don't know why these names were given. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if they were already pre-established, so it's hard for me to answer that. But yeah, anyway, I think that was most of the question. Go ahead.
So I definitely think it does change my perspective on what a high ranker is, what a ranker is, and what, because up until now, we haven't, you know, Yuri and Karaka's fight, above just being stupidly badass, is like such a great fight because of that, right? It's the first time that we get to see two people of the ranker status like really like cut loose, right? Like really take the gloves off and like go. No, so because like I brought up the workshop during our stream, I brought up the workshop battle, the, you know, like the fight that was about to happen between Lara Rowe and like, you know, said generic ranker that they inserted, where like they were, you know, it looked like they're about to square off in more or less very much the same way that Yuri and Karaka end up but they get like sort of stilted. And whether that was because of the floor they were on and like they had certain limitations, whether it's because of the allegiances that they had and the things they were trying to get accomplished, whatever. But this is the first time that it's like, oh no, one, like, you know, one to another, like let's fight for real. And so I think it does definitely change my perspective on it, because up until now I've always been like, okay, like rankers are stronger than regulars and high rankers are stronger than rankers, but like what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like when we're talking about the power scaling, because then like you said, you have the 10 great family members, and then you have the heads of those families, and then you have Jahad, or Jahad's family, and then Jahad. So it's like, because there's so many pieces to that scale in my mind, I was like, okay, but like who is actually as strong as what, and how do we judge this? How do we measure this? So this fight was great because it's like, okay, if you're telling me that this kind of strength, which in no way, shape, or form can be called anything other than stupidly stupid, like that's what high rankers are capable of. Like that's the kind of potential that they pack. Any other character that we meet in the story that is a high ranker or above, you know, that's where the bar is set, right? Because and like Yuri, and they say Yuri and Karaka are like sort of exceptions in the high ranker class, because they're kind of like prodigies or geniuses of their particular sex or abilities. But it definitely, it's like, oh, before I was like, okay, rankers are or high rankers are stronger than regulars in the sense that, like, you know, to use a Naruto reference, like then are as strong as like Kakashi is to Kid Naruto, right? Where it's like, oh, okay, he's the teacher, so he's just got that natural level of experience. But it's like, it's literally a different, like, they're not even, my perspective is open now, because it's like, okay, I get it now. They're literally doing their, because that was the joke that chat made with us, where they're like, they would always like remind us that like, no, high rankers are like in a literal different world. And it was like, okay, but like, what does that mean? And it's like, I know what they mean now. It's like they literally are in a different level when it comes to trying to compare. They are bomb wishes, you know, like, and I'm specifically, I'm sure Bomb will get to that status, but you know what I mean? Some of these regulars could only dream of obtaining or having that kind of power. But again, perspective has definitely shifted, and I think that fight definitely helped, because it's the first time you get to see these people unlock their sleeves.
Yeah, and really cool abilities at that.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But anyway, moving on to the next question, which is question number 6. And Gavin, as soon as you do that, if you wouldn't mind scrolling for me there so I can read it. Thank you very much. Then thank you. So question number 6 reads by Weiss Chen. Thank you very much for the question, Weiss Chen. Much love. Says, the obvious. What is the connection between Karaka and Wangnan? Brothers? ? Sure, but what else? Who is the father? Jahad? Do they have a father at all? What is their deal? So very good question.
Wait, did you read 5 or 6?
I read 6.
Oh, did we not?
I'm supposed to do 5. All right, we're going to talk about
All right, we can do-
5. No, that's fine because Gavin's already here. I apologize. Number 5. Weiss Chen, we'll get to you in a minute. That was spoiler alert. Okay, number 5 comes by Ryu. My bad. Ryu, thank you for the question. In the Name Hunt Station arc, we're shown Kuhn's unwavering loyalty to Bomb, his insistent need to protect him from people who try to use him, and his support in helping Bomb find his own identity despite all outside forces demanding that he be wholly selfless and godlike. Seems like a really big Coon stand here by the phrasing of that question. Almost seemed a little leading. What do you think about the way Kuhn and Bomb's friendship and teamwork are portrayed in this arc? Do you think it's being developed well from the beginning of the season, season 1 all the way up to this point? Why? Where do you think it will be headed in the future? So in the I guess this is more not so much as answering a question, but as, offering, I guess, opinions on how we think this was done. Because it seems like the question was kind of answered for itself within the first half, that, Kuhn has done X things that I have labeled here, that Ryu has labeled. So I guess, do you think that, do we think that it's been done well? And I guess where do we think it's going to go in the future are really the big questions that are leading here. So Isaiah actually provided a lot of points on the question before when we talked about Jinsung Ha and Fug relating to him as God and Kuhn grounding him and stuff like that. So I would defer to that to answer the first half of the question in terms of his unwavering loyalty and him telling him to be himself, etc. Yeah, I think they've done it pretty good. To answer the question, especially the second 2 parts here, do you think it's been developed well from the beginning of the season 1 all the way up to this point? I do. Yeah, I know, sometimes I know these two really, really like Kuhn, so sometimes it overshadows how much I actually do like Kuhn as well as a character because I'm not quite as vocal about it. I might not be as big of a stand as these guys, but I do like Kuhn a lot as a character. He's incredibly intelligent, and one thing I do like about him beyond all that stuff, which is awesome to see, is his relationship with Bam in the sense that he is a fantastic friend for him. And I love how Bomb, and even Rack too, but specifically Bomb and him kind of are catalysts for each other to grow in areas that they lack, which we see from the get-go in season 1. Kuhn initially just kind of went to him out of curiosity, really being piqued. And, I bet if you ask Kuhn that, he'd be like, best decision I ever made, right? Because he's able to kind of step out of himself now. He's able to realize things that he might be doing wrong or right, etc. Maybe get offered a new perspective on things. And I would say his motivations, have drastically changed from the point where we see him at first to where he is now, right? It's like Bomb is a centerpiece in every decision that he makes, but it's not in a sense that he's just like a follower or yes man or anything like that. As I said before, he does a fantastic job at grounding Bomb and helping him in places that he lacks. And I think that makes for a fantastic friendship in the sense that you could have a friend through things you relate to, right? But I think what develops relationships and, those everlasting bonds are what you struggle with together, right? Or how you guys struggle and how you are able to grow in spite of that and do that together. And sometimes that takes a friend and a very close one to be able to help you get through those times. So I think they've done a fantastic job of that. And that is one of the reasons why I like Kuhn quite a bit as a character, is because he's been able to look outside of himself and take, an introspective position and grow. He still has his faults, as do all characters, so does Bomb, but that's something I really appreciate about him, and especially how it plays off of Bomb's character as well. And where do I think it's headed in the future? I think it's things are looking good. I think that, Gavin had mentioned before where there definitely might be some potential wedges that are formed in, the whole God argument, that Kuhn is like, hey, you need to be a little grounded, and that, for Gavin's reasons he described before, good points, that could drive a wedge into things. Rachel, obviously, is a big factor as well. That's like Bomb trying to get over his ex, and, Kuhn, his boy, is like, bro, gotta let it go. And he's like, but I can't, like that might drive a wedge as well. But I would like to believe that their friendship is strong enough to be able to withstand those battles, withstand those storms, and that they, will emerge victorious as a team from whatever comes down their path. And not only with just them, but all the people that are involved as well, the entire gang, right? I could list them all off, but you get my point. So those are my thoughts on it. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts as well.
I agree in the sense that I definitely think that the relationship has been done very well up until now. I think, like you were saying in season 1, watching the way that Bam and Kuhn first align or come together is sort of out of fuck, it's him or nobody, or necessity. It's like, this guy, I think he's got a lot of potential, or what have you. But the actual relationship that these two have formed over the years is probably one of the most rock solid in the whole series. And it's interesting that we started off this conversation or this discussion with the whole thing of not a lot of people really putting faith in or trusting Bomb, because Kuhn is one of the people who does, right? He's one of the people who has always unwillingly given, Bomb his, his opinion or his definition of things, very blunt, very straightforward, not sugarcoating this for you. This is what's happening. This is where we're at. This is what I think we need to do. And I think it's because of that, that their relationship has clicked more, because, I think, again, ironically, all these people who maybe don't know Bomb as well or don't have the full scope of his capabilities, tend to doubt him, or they're like, Bomb, I understand that you've been training, but there's some real fucked up shit further up in the tower, where it's ironically though, in order to get closest to Bomb, all you really need is to trust him and trust him, but also help him grow. I think, as we mentioned, one of the things that I think makes a relationship so great is that they make each other better. It's not just well, thank God Kuhn is here, for Bam's sake, or thank God, Bam is here for Kuhn's sake. It's no, it's a back and forth where they each feed off of each other and make each other better people. And I think that's it's definitely been done really well. And I think it was where it was hinted at in season 1. Now we're really starting to see the fruits of that friendship or of that relationship, so to speak. And I do also agree that I think right now it's in a really good, solid place. There are external things, i.e. Rachel, and et cetera, that could drive a wedge or complicate said relationship. But I mean, that's sort of the deal here, right? It's in X amount of time that it will take Bam and Kuhn to reach, Rachel or some obstacle. Will there, in that time, right, will their relationship have been built up enough, and will it have, solidified enough to be able to overcome said obstacle, or will it be something that presents a problem? I don't really know. Like I said, I think right now we're in a pretty good spot, and I hope it stays that way. That's sort of my thoughts.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of went in on the question 1 or 2, obviously, echoing everything that they said, great dynamic, match made in heaven. You love to see it. Everybody loves to see it. And just thinking of it purely from an author standpoint, it's right now we're at the pinnacle of their friendship. They know what each other's thinking almost. They're willing to go with the flow. They bounce off each other very well. And it's just for me, it's prime time where soon it's just going to hit turbulence. It's not going to be a clean ride through this tower. Nothing is a clean ride. So it's really just a matter of time. And, I'm not using necessarily context. I mean, for the context clues that I have, I guess, is that we know how Kuhn gets when things don't go his way, especially with Bam. Kuhn is very level-headed. I love that man to death, but he can go into a dark place really fast. And when he does, I feel like he is willing to make some decisions more selfishly. And, it's more, and that's not a bad thing, because at the end of the day, he wants it for the betterment of Bam. However, it's the whole Rachel dynamic where it's you kind of, I get worried with him, especially when it comes to some of these decisions, because he wants to do what he feels is right. And, it's given whatever context Bam is put into. And, he becomes the person where he feels like he needs to carry the burden in really maneuvering Bam where he wants to go. And if Bam doesn't want to go in that direction, they're going to clash, and that's going to cause problems. And the more powerful that Bam gets, the more he is going to be able to oversee Kuhn's decisions, because physically he can do what he wants because he feels like he has the power to, and that's going to rub Kuhn the wrong way. And, the relationship is strong, but again, I do have this, I love Kuhn to death, but I have this weird feeling that it's like, if things don't go his way, it's not going to end pretty. And I hope that's not the case. I really don't, but I feel like it's just everything has been going way too smooth, way too perfect. It's only a matter of time before something gets thrown under the boat. And again, what I said before is really my prediction, is just it's going to be a breaking off. Something happens that brings them. Ultimately, in the future, they're going to come back together and things are going to be melded. Things are going to be good. But I just don't see things running smoothly for a lot longer, or at least for the duration of this whole series. Yes.
He goes, yes. Agreed.
It's like hard saying these things because, like, obviously I love Kuhn. He's literally my favorite character, but it's like we've seen him have these moments where it's like, come on, Kuhn. It's like you just get scared. You're like, no. You're like, just stay with Bam. Like, just listen to him. Just do it. Like, just do it. But then, like, Kuhn thinks that it's right. And, it's whether you think it's selfish or not or whatever, it's like he has his own opinion and Bam has his own opinion. They're not going to be on the same page all the time. That's just not a realistic viewpoint. So it really just depends on, how they overpass those obstacles. And again, it's just going to get harder when Bam gets more power, and that's just the reality of it.
I love those moments with Kuhn, actually, and not in that sense where it's like I want him to fail, I want him to succeed, but I like those moments where he kind of has to either eat some humble pie or he's having like a dilemma within his head and stuff, because I think Kuhn's character can be perceived sometimes as almost like godlike in how ridiculously intelligent he is in these certain scenarios, and he's part of the 10 great families and all that jazz. And so it's like sometimes I feel like not in a bad way, I think in a good way, it's good when he gets knocked down a peg once in a while, because 100%. Then when he builds back up, it makes him that much cooler once again. Because it's like, okay, you were able to do all these things at this upper level, but when you get knocked back down and then you're able to get back up there, it makes it that much cooler, in my opinion. So I like that. I like that aspect about. I like when Kuhn hits those potholes and is able to emerge victorious. That's when I like Kuhn the most.
Yeah,
personally.
and it's what brings them development. Like, for me saying what I have, it's not for the negative side. It's for the fact that they are going to grow from it, and they need to, because nobody's perfect. And even though Kuhn seems like it, he has flaws, and SIU, I feel like, has to address them in some way, and this is the best way to address them. I mean, not the best way, but like as an author standpoint, it is the best way, and it'll throw your viewers in for a loop that they're not going to like and be hated and want to keep on watching because they want to kill the it's just we all know that cycle. So so let's go on to the next one.
Yes. All right, so the next question is from Weiss Chen. He hadn't read it before, but it's basically, what is the connection between Karaka and Wangnan? Are they brothers? But what else? Who is the father? Jahad? Do they have a father at all? What is their deal? This is my favorite question because there was a lot of bombshells and like information and
bombshells, sorry,
and crazy like shit that we learned or was revealed or whatever during these set of chapters. But this was like when this was like one of my favorites, and I because I immediately when I saw it started running all these different theories in my head, and I still have a few to be honest. But so I think some of the main things that I took away from this, or at least I have now after thinking about it very briefly, is that the brother that Karaka is referring to is not Wangnan, because the ring that Wangnan got was from Karaka's original brother, and that and Wangnan has it. And so, it's a thing of like Karaka thinks that his brother is alive now, and maybe that's because Karaka was the one who killed him. So there's like that personal sort of tension there where he's like, oh fuck, now I've got to go settle this because that dude's walking around and I can't let him live. I can't let him be alive, which we know spells trouble for Wangnan because my God, if Karaka can go toe to toe with Yuri, Wangnan's kind of fucked right now. At least if he meets Karaka, tomorrow. But my second theory, running along the Wangnan was the rightful owner of that original ring, is that Karaka is not the rightful owner of his ring. And so him saying my brother is not his literal brother, but brother means my competition, my rival, my other heir to the other person who could challenge me. Because I believe that, like, at least in my head here, like, when we're talking about people who can challenge Jahad for the stand of the throne, I mean, the pool is very small, right? It's irregulars. I think that's it, if I'm being honest. So, like, And even in Bomb's conversation with Karaka on the bridge, he even states, he's like, oh, so what is this? You're just after the thorn? Like, that's what you want? You want, like, that so you have the power? And Karaka's like, no, I don't, because I don't need that. Because, to be honest, if it's not melted down with you, I can't use it. It's virtually useless to me. So I think, and from what we know, at least from Karaka's association with Fug, which we know Fug is very big on, like, this sort of, like religious level of like faith and belief in their slayers and stuff, whether they're right or wrong, like they will follow. And that was sort of the whole deal with, I think, at least a little bit with Jin Sung and, you know, bailing out Elaine for Bomb, is that like, whether your slayer is like doing the right or wrong thing, if you are loyal to said person, you're like, they want to kill 100 people, you know?
Yeah.
And like, so, but my point in this is that I think that ring, like just having that ring, is like a title in itself, right? And it allows people to either think or know that like Karaka has claim to the throne here. He's like, do you know, like I have this ring here, and I don't know if it's like whether that comes with like a specific set of powers or like rules, you know, by its own, or if it's just like a symbol, if it's just a metaphorical thing. But I would think it's interesting if like Wangnan actually like obtained the ring through legitimate means, and Karaka is the one who's like, no, you're not, like, again, brother, much like the duality here between like calling the 10 great families the great families when it's like they're the farthest thing from it, is like Karaka, while he may have this ring, is by no means a legitimate heir to the throne and does not have that claim, but like tried to take it, because we know that Karaka's a pretty greedy nigga, and like all he wants, he wants all the power, he wants to be king, he wants everybody, you know what I mean? So I would actually think it's interesting if he's like, my brother, there's someone out there who has this ring. And I think even just the thought of him knowing that, which is why he reacted the way he did, is because it's a little terrifying, because he doesn't know who this is. This could, if he obtained his ring through illegitimate means, this might be somebody who didn't, which means this might be somebody who like stands a real actual threat against Karaka and him obtaining the king's throne. Now, again, we know this is Wangnan, and right now, at least, we know Wangnan does not pose any threat to Karaka. But that's not my point. My point is that Karaka doesn't know that. All he knows is that somebody else who has this ring, and again, if Karaka knows what that ring means, this presents a real sort of, you know, obstacle for Karaka going forward.
Yeah, this is something. So I wanted to throw another theory in there. I mean, not that I believe it to be so, but Isaiah and I were talking about this before we recorded for today. So honestly, I mirror a lot of the things that you were saying, because we were kind of having the same conversation. But another interesting thing would be, and it seems like it'd be like too obvious or too silly for it to be possible, but how crazy would it be if Wangnan was like literally his brother? Like it was like some wild shit where it's like, no, like we're literal siblings.
That could be crazy.
And it's like, because Wangnan, we know, again, I don't really believe this. I don't know. It seems a little far-fetched, the theory, but just throwing it out there for some fun. Like Wangnan, we don't really know too much about his past. We know that he has potentially some sort of latent ability. He has the ring, right? Like, okay, if he got it through illegitimate means, like, you know, did he, if he's not his brother, exactly, like, did he kill him? If so, you know, if it was him, like, how powerful are you to kill Karaka's brother? And like clearly that ring is like, you don't just flaunt that ish if you're just some nobody, you know what I mean, like walking down the street. So I wonder, or is it like literally his brother, you know, because Karaka has a mask on right now, he's never taken it off yet. That's true. So we don't know what he looks like under there. He could look like him. I don't know. I think the amount of questions, this one opens a huge can of worms, but it's awesome to think about. And it would be crazy to think that like Wangnan literally, you know, potentially got like his memory wiped somehow and he doesn't even realize how strong he is, or he is and he's like undercover. That would be nuts. Like, I don't know. It's a fun one.
We have like we have evidence of the ring and its importance to Wangnan, right? He, like, this thing is like a prized possession for him. I am curious for me actually to go back into the early season 2 panels and find out what his explanation is to Viol for why he has that ring. They do have a scene there, and I'm now curious to go back and see what that is, because I wonder also if it's like a Kuhn Maria thing where Wangnan told Viol something that's not necessarily true.
Sure.
But we do know one of the other instances with the ring was after Wangnan had that near-death experience, and Yeon is sitting in his room, and the ring is on the right side of his bed, and she sort of eyes it, and she's like, "Is that what it?" And she doesn't say anything about it, right? We don't know if it was a glance of like, "Oh shit, that's a ring of Jahad. What the hell is he doing with it?" Or of like, "What is that? That's weird." But I guess that's sort of more to my point, is I would wager that this ring, just by itself, like, has reputation as a tower. This is a thing where it's like, if you have this ring, like, you are somebody in Jahad's circle, or you're somebody that is important to Jahad. So I think that, coupled with Wangnan's actual near-death experience, that whole thing and the dream he has while he's sleeping, where it's like, I really do think this is a situation of like, the reason Wangnan holds that ring as a prized possession is because his memory, while his memories may not be intact, this is one of the only things he remembers getting from his family. And I think that family is Jahad.
Yeah.
So
He even runs after it, I think, at one point. There's a point where it's like, oh, my ring or something. Like, correct me if I'm wrong.
Well,
but
he leaves it in the locker room.
Yeah,
and he's like, I gotta go back, and that's when Viola finds it. And
I gotta get my ring.
It's very interesting.
Gavin, I'm curious to hear your thoughts, because you have some spicy predictions sometimes.
Bro,
so
I'm not gonna lie. I had like this weird revelation that I shouldn't even call revelation, because not only was I not really paying attention to you guys, but no, this is gonna come in good fruition, because I may look like an idiot, but I literally. No, the reason why I say that is because something popped into my head that I never actually thought of before, tying with this story, and like I was kind of just trying to tie the loops in my head to see if this would even actually be feasible or make sense, and trying to make it make sense. So I'm probably gonna look like an idiot, but this is what I just came up with on the spot. These two are probably right. However, what popped into my head was, obviously we see princesses of Jahad, and we haven't seen any princes of Jahad yet, other than the referred to one as we've seen. So I was wondering if maybe way back in the day, princes of Jahad were just as much of a thing as princesses, okay? And with that, maybe there was becoming too much of a power struggle, or maybe Jahad was getting too concerned because now these families were able to breed and have so much weird, obscure, and unique powers that he was fearing that, I might actually be able to get overthrown one day. I need to stifle this. How do I do that? Princesses of Jahad, they're not allowed to have kids anymore, okay? And that would almost explain why they're not allowed to, is obviously because we kind of came up with that, like we mentioned it before, where it's like that might be a reason why. So tying into that is maybe King Jahad himself had a wife and kids, per se, which would maybe allude to Wangnan and even Karaka, because I don't know why I have a weird thing where like maybe Karaka was like the firstborn in a sense, and then Wangnan was like the secondborn, okay? And with whether there was other princes of Jahad or not, kind of irrelevant, but maybe the King Jahad was like, okay, I have these two sons. This can become a problem. I kind of want to get rid of them. And almost like ostracize the older son, who would be Karaka, out of the tower. And with that was going after Wangnan to get rid of him. And maybe at the time, Jahad's wife, if he was even that loyal, again, in this headcanon he is, she was like defending her kids and was like, no. So he ultimately was like, all right, I'm getting rid of you. And maybe in some weird way, Jahad's wife was able to seal away Wangnan for X amount of time to where eventually he would be awaken again, almost like Avatar in a sense, where it's like now X many years later, Wangnan has awoken. He doesn't really remember anything, but now he's getting these weird flashbacks of stuff that has happened or that he might think that happened with his lineage, and all that his mother left him with was the ring of Jahad, and that's it. Everything else is gone, and so many years have passed, and now there are no princes of Jahad, whether princesses were able to or not have kids at that time, whatever. But like that's a weird thing that kind of just went through my mind that I never thought of, and I was like, that would be really cool if, I don't know. It could make no sense.
That's not actually that. I mean, that's basically they are actually related theory.
Yeah.
Just a little bit more fleshed out. So yeah,
I mean,
for sure. I don't know.
That could be a thing, and that you've seen that in certain shows before, where the two brothers will get ostracized from the parents, and then they take different routes because it affects them differently, being that they're at a different age. If you've seen the show, I know kind of off anime, but like if you've seen the show Dexter before, have you seen it? Like the two in the first season, how they're both brothers, and how Dexter's older brother takes that scenario very differently than Dexter does, right? So like it could be something where Karaka, being that he's older, he's like, no, Wangnan, like I understood what happened. You know what I mean? Like I was old enough to remember this vividly, whereas maybe Wangnan, in this theory, maybe was separated with his mother, and maybe his mother would always tell him like, you are the prince of Jahad, like you are destined to do great things, and like maybe that ring was something that tied it. I don't know. And whereas like Karaka is like in straight up spite and rebellion against it and wants to kill it.
I have another weird thing real quick, and that might explain why Jahad doesn't allow the current princesses of Jahad to love anybody, because maybe out of what happened with him and his current partner at that time, he had such a bad taste in his mouth that he was like, all right, since I have, like, maybe his wife betrayed him in some way with favoring the kids over his decision, but is like, all right, since all this happened to me, nobody else is allowed to feel love. Like, you're not allowed to love anybody. Kids aside, you can't feel it. It's like a spite thing.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah.
Headcanon.
I could definitely see that as a possibility. I think it's interesting, to be honest, whether Wangnan and Karaka are actually related, or if again, like the theory of like brother is a term that's not like, again in this show, is not, words are not used in their literal sense. So like brother could mean rival. This person is another person who has a ring of Jahad. That's dangerous because that means that person has the same amount of claim to the throne that I do. I
like
think
the Princess of Jahad situation where like they're sisters, but they're not all sisters
exactly.
by blood.
Right.
So I can see that too.
And it's like whether like Jahad, whether I don't know how much, I mean, none of us know, like if the queen of the tower, his wife, whoever that woman was, if that woman even existed, was a thing. I don't know how much of a role she has to play in this, because what I think is more interesting, even if we're going off the theory here that they are actually related, is that while Wangnan and Karaka were split from birth, right, or didn't grow up together, Wangnan grew up as a regular. He grew up as anybody else. Somebody who had to climb the tower. He had to work his way up to the 20th floor. Whereas Karaka didn't have to do that, right? He not to say that he didn't train or he didn't foster any of his talents or stuff, but they clearly like two different ideologies like led these two down very different paths. And so what I think is interesting is that duality where it's like, I don't know if it was like somebody in Wangnan's life before he left the Jahad circle that has made him the way it is. I actually think it's the fact that Wangnan grew up like most regulars. The fact that he grew up having to climb the tower like everybody else, that he's like got such a good head on his shoulders because of all the people he's either made friends with or met or saved or what have you, to whereas Karaka has only gotten as far as he is by doing the opposite, by killing people, by lying to them, by stepping over top of them, by like taking any opportunity he can to ascend at the expense of somebody else, which sort of, somewhat creates the version of Karaka we see now. And so I think what's interesting, at least to me, about that theory is that like, again, it sort of weirdly parallels the whole Bomb Rachel scenario we have here, where it's like these two sides of the same coin, I guess, if that's what you want to call them, that are like going up the tower or trying to get to whatever's at the top of the tower, but like by parallel means, and like which one works.
Exactly. And that's why like the more I think about it, the more I'm like, wow, this could be, because like it's just so crazy. Well, no, it's just so crazy how much like experiences in life could impact you. And I'm like, I could see where if like, say Karaka Jahad was his dad, let's say, and he iced his wife, aka Karaka's mom, that kind of would explain why he's in the scenario that he is now. And, Wangnan being the younger brother in this scenario wouldn't know anything of it, and, being sealed away or whatever. I don't know. I'm like,
or maybe they're brothers, but only because they're both related to specifically Jahad. Like they have different moms, though.
Ooh, that could be
so
a fact.
So Karaka is like, no, I'm going after the throne because you don't deserve to be there, Jahad. You killed my mother. You took her away from me. Where Wangnan is like, didn't have that, like that tragedy or trauma is something that impacted Karaka specifically. So it's like, no, like if you were to meet Wangnan, let's say if this theory is real, he's like, no, you don't deserve to, like, you don't get it. You don't know what kind of person Jahad is. You don't understand like the kind of evil, which is ironic coming out of Karaka's mouth, but and so like it's oh my, I feel like I could go all day, but it's like there's so many theories of like what the fuck the relationship is between these two. First, I think it's like, and I'm guessing this is the first beat the story goes, is solidifying who that nigga is, how legitimate these two are in terms of relation. Are they actually brothers? Like I said, I definitely am like dead ass. I'm going back into season 2 or beginning of season 2. I want to reread some of Wangnan's early like panels and stuff, and like when he talks about the ring, because I'm curious now.
Oh man, it's getting spicy. I'm really curious about that story arc. Gavin, how about you read us the last question here?
Last question by Fluffy Maniguin 33. Fluffy Maniguin 33. I don't know why I said that weird.
A newcomer to the Discord.
A newcomer.
Yes.
You are very
Thank
or at
you.
least a newcomer to adding questions to the channel.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Either way, we love you. Okay, so your question is, what do you think about how Bam used his importance to Fug to save Aline? Wait, what do you think about how Bam used his importance to Fug to save Aline? Will Bam have to rely on Fug more as he tries to save more people in the future? So, not gonna lie, not that it threw me off. I guess I'll just go into answering it. Sure. But initially when they were like, "Yeah, Fug's backing us," like for this transaction, I was kind of like,
oh, I thought we were like trying to get away from them. Now we're kind of backtracking. And it's like, it's just so ties into Bam's character in terms of wanting to save everybody and, you know, kind of seeing a good side in people and wanting to see them develop, where it's like, it doesn't matter who you are. We've seen him save his enemies before. It's like the fact that he would go to the extent, whether it was in his hand or not, to, you know, go in debt with Fug to save her, like, says something about Bam's character. And, you know, I don't know if that's actually a right move for Bam to make. I mean, in terms of wanting to leave Fug and now tying himself right back into it with a 10 billion point transaction. But will Bam have to rely on Fug? And I feel like now that he's already dug this hole, he kind of will almost rely on Fug in a way. And even if he doesn't necessarily rely on Fug, I feel like now this will be held over his head in terms of like, we did you a favor. Now you have to do something for us, maybe. Or like, I don't know. It's just weird how I didn't really think in the moment that Fug was going to kind of come in clutch to save like Elaine in this scenario. And now that you realize, oh, they kind of were readily available at the whim and kind of just did it on a dime. Like, yep, here's 10 billion points. Like, I almost feel like it's not going to be like a get out of jail free card, but it's almost like now that they have his backing and have done this big thing, like maybe Bam is going to be more willing to do transactions with them. And I don't like to say that because I don't want it to happen because that's not what he wants. But like, again, as he gets more power and like almost feels like he's fitting this role, he might be more willing to then make these transactions if he feels like he's doing it for the betterment of others. So yeah, I guess there might be more of these or more Fug in the future and kind of these transactions, which I don't know how I really feel about them. To be honest,
love it.
No, because like that's it. I don't think anybody really loves it. But then again, it's like, you know, there's different sects of Fug. You don't really have to say that everybody in Fug is bad. It really depends on whose side are you on in terms of the goal that they're trying to reach. And it's like, I don't know, just Fug has been a little bit of bad juju for him, and it's like, you know how much it meant for him to get away from them and, you know, kind of just discard Jewel Viol Grace. And it's like, now that it's kind of been forced on him to use, and now that they're kind of backing him a little bit and came out with this big transaction, it's like, bro, please don't go down this path again. But then again, it kind of seems like he has to. So I don't know. I guess in the question, I feel like he will rely on them again. Do I like it? No. Yeah, so we're just going to have to see to find out. So I'm curious to what you guys think.
What do you got?
I think it is definitely interesting when you think about, like you were saying, like how willing Fug was ready to go to bat for Bam. Because again, like I mentioned before, so like, you know, like we said, Fug is a huge, stupidly huge organization or group, right? To the point where there's literal different, you know, one group of Fug does not even think the same way or thing that another group of Fug thinks. And so let's just call it Bam sect, right? So we've got Jin Sung, Howard Ryun, see Bam as theirs, like that's their slayer. They're like, this is the guy right here, and we will do whatever it takes to get this man in the position he needs to be to kill Jahad. If that is their end goal, they're like, yeah, he needs help doing what? I don't care, do it, like get it done. Because again, we were saying before is like these Fug is like, you know, it mirrors religion in the sense that like whether what Bam wants is right or wrong, dog. If that's their slayer, if Bam wants you to pay to get this girl, that's what we're doing. Because they're so like religiously committed to their slayers that like I think it would be hard for Bam to just like cut the cord like cold turkey and just not be associated with Fug or Jewel Viol in any way, shape, or form. That moment in his life and the people that he met through it by extension is just so large and like interconnected that it's like that's not going to go away by Bam being like, you know what, I'm done with this shit. No, fuck that. It's like it's not. You don't get to just like whisk that away, bro. But I do think it's interesting. The next part of this question is like, will he end up having to rely on Fug more? Because I think while in the past he through his time growing up as Jewel Viol Grace, it was this thing of like Fug was like training him, right? Like, you know, as he's like the boxer in the thing, and they're like, all right, you got to do this, you got to do this, and you got to train here because like Jahad's in that other corner, and like when you get up, I need you to be ready to kill him. Fug was like using Bomb, so I actually think it would be interesting in a way if like the story sort of pans out in this you know, flipping that on its head, where Bomb learns to utilize, because Bomb, for all intents and purposes, got put through a lot of shit with Fug and was traumatized, quite frankly, by the experience, but if he can use that, at least some of that, a little bit of that, to his advantage, i.e., when it comes to stuff like this, I'd say it's not a problem, really. I mean, at the end of the day, it's another option in the arsenal here, right? Of as far as like scenarios that have, you know, that he has at his disposal, right? The whole original crux of the argument here between the whole Kaiser name thing was like, oh, we don't know if there's a way that like Bomb can win, keep his name, you know, get Kaiser's name and endorse it. Like, you know, if we can have like the everybody wins option. And it's like, no, this is a way. You know what I mean? So it's like, if Fug allows him to sort of go outside the box in certain avenues and like get things done that he couldn't do by himself, I again, as long as we're not talking about the same Fug that like Mr. Ruffalo Joe and all them and Karaka are part of, yeah, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad because I think it's more of Bomb using Fug instead of Fug using Bomb.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the points that you were saying there. You know, I think the fact is that, at least to me, the Fug that Bomb refers to, or that Bomb is in cahoots with, quote unquote, Jin Sung and Haoryun. Which in a weird way, they never left, right? Because he's like, oh, I escaped Fug. And it's like, yeah, you escaped, like, I guess, more of that kind of Fug. But, like, Fug never really left your side. Like, Haoryun's been part of your squad this entire time. She's been telling you where to go. So if you really want to get technical or, you know, split hairs here, you've actually been using Fug at every turn, you know, for, like, in the case of Haoryun.
Jin Sung has known where he's at the whole time,
exactly.
Not, like, you know.
But the thing is that these people want, I think, again, to mirror what you were saying, where it's, like, not necessarily everyone in Fug is bad. They're end goal, or like the way they get there, they might have differences in opinion, and some of them might be doing it for what they deem to be morally superior compared to others, etc. You could go into it all day, but the point is that Haoryun and Jin Sung want Bomb to succeed, and I think they want him to succeed for more than just the sense that, all right, it's like strictly the whole Slayer Fug thing. I think they do like Bomb as a person, you know, in general. So just to kind of mirror those thoughts. But anyway, I think that's everything we have for today, right? All the questions? Yeah. All right, listen, folks, thank you so much for asking your questions today. Remember, if you enjoyed the content today, to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, and comment your thoughts down below. What did you think of our discussion? What did you think of the chapters? What did you think of the videos, the live streams, etc.? Let us know all those thoughts in the comments down below. But until next time, we will catch you on the flip. Peace.
Peace. Peace.
Ninjas and samurais, blazing the Kuhn eyes. Find me in the leaf of the cloud, screaming out Bankai. We just some ghouls though, who like seeing parts fly.